She spent her first night fighting to stay alive. I sat with her until 8 in the morning, watching her breathe, not sure she would make it to the next hour. Now she screams at me if I am 5 minutes late with her breakfast, follows me into every room, and acts like she personally owns the place. This is Wisp, and this is how the tiniest, most fragile thing I have ever held became the loudest, most demanding presence in my life. Every morning begins the same way. A sound comes from somewhere across the room, small, sharp, completely unreasonable for the hour. It is not a bark, it is not a cry, it is a full announcement. Wisp is awake, Wisp is hungry, and Wisp would like you to know that you are already late. She is a white Persian mix with wild, uneven fur that refuses to lie flat, a face that looks permanently offended by the state of things, and a voice that carries through walls, around corners, and into rooms she has not even entered yet. She weighs almost nothing. She makes up for it entirely in volume. But there was a time, not so long ago, when she made no sound at all. A group of Persian cats were abandoned in the neighborhood without warning. No explanation left behind, no plan made for them, just left. Someone had decided they were no longer a priority, and that was that. One of them turned out to be pregnant, though no one knew it at the time, and one afternoon, without ceremony or preparation, one tiny kitten arrived that the world was not ready for. She was so small, she could barely be felt in 2 hands held together. Her fur was damp and pressed flat against her fragile body. Her eyes had not opened yet. She would not latch to her mother, no matter how carefully she was guided back, no matter how many times. The first hour passed, then the second. She was not gaining, she was losing ground, quietly, the way small things do when the odds are stacked against them from the very first breath. That night, sleep was not an option. The bottle had to be introduced slowly, patiently, with no guarantee it would work. The fear with kittens that small is that they can fade quickly and without much warning, and there is very little you can do once the window closes. Every few minutes meant leaning close, checking the rise and fall of her chest, whispering to her even though she could not properly hear it yet. Not because it helped her, because it was the only thing left to do. By the time the clock reached 8 in the morning, she was still breathing. That felt like everything. That was everything. She figured out the bottle on the first full day. The moment she understood what it meant, something shifted in her. She stopped being passive about it. She grabbed on and would not let go. She had found her reason to stay, and she was not interested in letting it go. In the weeks that followed, Wisp developed what can only be described as a personal schedule, and she expected it to be respected. Meals were not suggestions, they were appointments with a specific start time, and if you were late, she would let you know. It began as a few small sounds, reasonable enough. Then it escalated. Then it became a full performance, a steady, building, completely committed series of complaints that left no room for misunderstanding. She was hungry, you were late, these were facts, and she was presenting them. She also discovered conversation somewhere along the way. If you sat across from her and spoke, she would answer. Not randomly, not out of reflex. She would look at you directly, wait for a natural pause, and then respond with her own sounds, as if she were contributing something important to the discussion. She learned her name early. She learned certain other words too. The moment she heard them, her ears would shift and her whole expression would change. It felt less like caring for a kitten and more like living with someone who had strong opinions, a full schedule, and very little patience for being ignored. As the weeks passed, her body began catching up with her personality. She would build up speed across the floor, reach a point where physics stopped cooperating, and go completely sideways. She would land, pause for exactly 1 second, look at nothing in particular, and then continue as if nothing had occurred. No embarrassment, no hesitation, just forward. Her appetite grew into something that required planning.
The kitten, who once had to be coaxed through the night, was now standing at the bowl, sending clear messages about the timeliness of the service. The screaming never stopped, but it changed. In those first fragile days, every sound carried real urgency underneath it. As she grew, the urgency faded and pure drama replaced it. She was not in distress, she was making a statement. I see you're still here but haven't subscribed yet. That honestly stings a little. Hit that subscribe button. There's a lot more where this came from. There are days when she decides whatever you are doing is less important than she is. If you sit down, she is on you within 30 seconds. If you walk into another room, she appears behind you almost immediately. But there is another side. When something feels wrong, she does not perform. She comes to you quietly, presses close, and stays there until it passes. No announcement, no drama, just a small animal trusting you completely, asking for something she has no other way to ask for. In those moments, she feels impossibly small again. It is impossible not to think back to that first night. The clock at 8 a.m., that tiny chest still rising and falling. She does not carry the weight of those hours, but you do. And some mornings, when she's resting with her chin tucked and her eyes half closed, the thought surfaces. How close it was. How different the house could sound right now. If this story is reaching you, share it. Some things deserve to be heard by more people than just us. She is not a perfectly assembled cat. Her fur moves in several directions and has made peace with that. She is demanding, vocal, opinionated, and completely unbothered by what any of it looks like. She is also the reason the house sounds the way it does now. Every complaint means she is here. Every dramatic breakfast announcement means she made it through that first night, and the night after, and everyone since. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. If you are thinking about fostering a kitten who needs bottle feeding or extra care, know that it is exhausting in ways that are hard to explain until you have lived them, but it is one of the most worthwhile things you can do. They do not need to be perfect, they just need someone willing to stay. Because sometimes the ones who fight the hardest to arrive fill the most space once they do. Because love does not always come quietly. Sometimes it arrives at an impossible hour, weighing almost nothing, refusing to give up, and loud enough, eventually, to fill every single room it walks into. Would you have stayed up all night for her? Or would the fear have been too much? Tell me in the comments.